I thought the stuff happening with Iroh and Zuko were really cool. And honestly, those two, at least in action, yeah, they stayed pretty close to like the core of what the animated show had. Because of that, I think Zuko and Iroh relatively are the closest iterations to the original show out of all the characters within, because that's another huge problem that I have, is that like most of these characters, aside from like Sokka, didn't feel like they're characters from the show. And some of that has to do with like, again, animation not transitioning over to live action very well, and because of that, like the mediums are just fundamentally different, which means they're going to present differently. But at the same time also, it's just like the writing for some of these characters just were not the same. They were different, and unfortunately that was like a double whammy for Azula, right? So here's what I mean for Azula. Again, in the original show, she wasn't even really given much screen time until season 2, when she was brought in to replace Zhao as the sub-antagonist. And because of that, she was almost like this enigmatic, mysterious figure that we knew there was a lot of back history with, as far as like the characters, especially, you know, like Zuko and Iroh, but we didn't see it, right? Which caused us to be interested in how she was going to relate to these other characters and the skills that she brought to the table, right? Because if I remember correctly, her first scene ever in the show, and I might be wrong on this, but I want to say her introductory scene was either her just completely berating the men on the ship, the sailors, and her talking about like, because I think one of the sailors says, oh, we can't, the tides will not allow us. And then she says, you know, did the tides command the ship? I can throw you overboard and we'll see if the tides will allow you to survive or something like that. But the brilliance of Azula being introduced in season 2 is that it was it wasn't quite there, but it was the kind of like Nick's version of the Thanos whole, like, I'll do it myself. Because if Zhao was the guy who was supposed to, you know, like face off against Zuko, and he was, again, a grown man racing against a 16-year-old to try to find the Avatar, we then randomly, I don't want to say randomly, but like unexpectedly get like a 16-year-old girl who's supposed to be a step up. And that's insane. It's this idea that like the show was saying we're upping the ante, but we're upping the ante by effectively altering everything that you knew about the scary threat, right? It's, again, a 16-year-old girl is supposed to replace our grown man admiral, and it works so well because she's way scarier than Zhao. And it makes you that much more interested in like, how did this person get this way? What are they capable of? And you continuously see Azula in control over pretty much every situation that she had. We see not even like inklings of weakness in Azula until really season 3, I think. But all this is to say that because the show, the live action now, specifically made us closer with Azula, there's not much of that there. We just know her, right? There's not a lot of mystery. There's not a lot of like, how did this person become who she is? We get to see her weak and bothered and frustrated and furious.